home to our particular education setting here in Ireland. First level, second level, third level, where the emphasis is ramping up on digital technology without any solid proof that it does enhance outcomes in terms of learning for the student. What, in your opinion, are the screen's Achilles heels that you referred to in that paper that is the subject of our discussion this morning? What's the Achilles heel of digital technology? For instance, the impact on sleep disruption among our children.
Yeah, well, like everything else, a lack of knowledge in physics and biology. The particular technology that we now use in all our screens is based on light emitting diodes, LED. And these emit in normal use, in general use, light in the blue light spectrum, white blue light as we call it, and that has, and it's a natural occurring light as well. It helps regulate our circadian rhythm, in other words, our sleep patterns. And there is a natural cycle of exposure to that light in the summer and the winter. However, the light we get from our screens is artificial, and what it does from a regular exposure, even up to and over just 1 hour of exposure in the evening, is it suppresses the body's production of melatonin. All of this is a scientific fact, right? It's not up for debate. It's well known.
Proven fact.
Now, interference in body's production of melatonin, all things being considered, affects sleep and sleep patterns. Melatonin is also a vital antioxidant in the fight against disease in the immune system, in strengthening the immune system, ensuring proper cellular and mitochondrial functioning. And of course, as such, it regulates oxidative stress. I don't want to go back to that one again, but more importantly, the issue here, right, is that using screens in the classroom is fine during the day. Not ideal for other reasons, because the screen has also been found in strong levels of light from the screen, but also in very, very low levels of light, to affect vision at a physiological level, right? And over time, so much so that one Chinese district, right, has banned the use of screens in class because there's a high incidence of myopia in certain communities in China, and in this regional community is quite high. And they found that using screens increased the incidence and severity of myopia. So there are two issues here. One is computer vision syndrome, and in the eyes, the developing eyes of young children, they shouldn't be using these devices at all. And the second, of course, then is the over-reliance on devices like tablets, iPads. I don't want to single out Apple, but any screen at all in the evening where kids are reading from them, it's going to interfere with their sleep patterns. Now, sleep is very important, as we all know. It's a critical element or factor in learning, because it is through sleep that we lay down the memories and the learning experience and knowledge and skills that we develop during the day. If sleep is disrupted, learning is disrupted. Sure. So it is somewhat paradoxical, but nonetheless, whatever one may argue about likes of Wi-Fi, this is unequivocal. If we expose our kids to too much screens, it interferes absolutely with their sleep. It interferes with adult sleep, let alone say kids, right?
So the habits developed, like hopping into bed with the iPad to go through, even children or adults looking at screens before they try to go to sleep, is a bad idea.
It's a public health problem. I'll tell you why. A report from Chu et al. 2014. Short-term sleep deprivation affects cognition, vigilance, mood, behavior, ability to learn, immune function, melatonin, and general performance. More seriously, epidemiological studies associate poor sleep with long-term outcomes such as diabetes, obesity, depression, hypertension, and general mortality from all causes.
Wow.
Now, I'm sorry, right? Kids should not be using screens to the extent that they are today. And we take it in, every time they sit down in front of a television now, it's an LED screen. So they go from television, personal devices, learning devices. And as I was saying earlier, I believe that schools should be a safe haven. They should be, ideally, a screen-free zone, except when the screens are being used for educational purposes.
At critical stages where the brain is in formation and the wiring of the brain is taking place, etc., they're really not being wired for long-term learning and retention and recall.
No, and this is just issue number one with the screen.
Mm-hmm. So, Simon, what are your observations? Do you find that students are more distractible, find it more difficult to concentrate in class, etc., as you see the rise in the use of screens among the very young?
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing I'd disagree with there from Tom. I'm a dad as well as a principal to a young child. He's 6, and there is no way he was getting a screen in his hands until he really couldn't not give him a screen. He didn't watch TV at all until he was about 3. He didn't touch tablet before the pandemic, really, because and we could see, I mean, very immediately, like how his mood changed after using a tablet for doing his work in school and things like that. There's a certain addiction there that no one, I don't think anyone could really deny. I mean, look, I mean, I think back a generation or two ago, we would have looked at TVs as a good babysitter. I think people are looking at tablets as a good babysitter in a way, and the balance of having that time, that we're very, very time poor. The balance of actually, you sort of almost close your eyes and your ears to the downside of these things. So I mean, I absolutely it's the fact that it's unquestionable in terms of the research that's out there. It's true. I mean, I'm shocked by people who bring their phones to bed and things like that. I mean, my at least the bedroom has to be a screen-free place, if nothing else. And that's just through doing absolutely no research, just as someone who kind of, I remember I think it was Steve Jobs said, like, he didn't allow his daughter to use his iPad, and it kind of said a lot to me. I think people who are involved in technology know this, innately. I mean, it couldn't make sense. It doesn't make sense otherwise. Anyway, that's that bit of it. But as an educator in the education field, again, I mean, I can't see how a classroom should use technology or should use a screen unless it's for a educational thing that you can't do without it. The only reason really to use a screen isn't to replace something you could learn without a screen. In my opinion, I mean, I think it's.
But the way education is going, rote learning is sort of a bad word anymore. There's got to be room for rote learning, would you think?
I mean, it can be. I don't know. I mean, I think every type of learning has its place. I think rote learning. It depends on the child and how best they learn, whatever that might be. I mean, some children learn well through rote learning, some children don't. And I mean, it's up to the educator to find the way that suits the child best. I mean, I'm a terrible rote learner. I've always have. I don't know how I got through the education system. But there we go. There are people that are, so I don't know if technology. Technology is brilliant for rote learning. To be honest, it's probably it's one of these great things. You can basically ask a child the same question over and over and over again, and the computer won't get bored. So it means it's an ideal tool for rote learning. I see technology. When technology is well, it's harder to do something that's a higher order sort of form of learning with technology, and that's why most software is better at lower order stuff, because it's easier to program. There are some good pieces of technology for the higher order end of things, but they're few and far between. Certainly at primary level, I could count, maybe on the fingers of one hand, software or apps or whatever that are good educational tools.
So there's a whole area there for educating educators on what to use and what not to use.